Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission, as always, is to take that mountain of source material you send us, run it through our analysis, and just give you the absolute core insights you need to be rapidly well-informed.
But today's deep dive is, it's fundamentally different. We're not looking at corporate earnings or, geopolitical trends. We are dissecting a single, incredibly compelling piece of source material.
Just one.
One story. A highly detailed first-person narrative that a listener sent in. It's the account of this high-stakes family drama involving wealth, deception, and a dinner confrontation that, well, it pretty much redefined the meaning of dignity.
Okay, let's unpack this phenomenal story because it is something else. The central figure here is a woman named Alara. She's a senior corporate executive who, for 2 solid decades, has been deliberately cultivating this facade of poverty.
A facade of humility, yes.
Right. And she chose to play this role for a very specific reason, to test the character of her son, Marcus's new in-laws, Veronica and Franklin. She had the suspicion they measured all human worth purely by, status markers.
And our goal here is to move way beyond just the entertainment value of this narrative, because it's a great story.
It is a great story.
But our mission is to extract the strategic and philosophical lessons. We are studying the nature of true power versus, let's call it, control, the definition of dignity, and the incredible, almost superhuman discipline it takes to earn $40,000 a month.
$40,000 a month.
And choose to live a simple, silent life.
Mm-hmm.
We want to understand how that one deliberate choice exposed the spiritual poverty of people who seem to have everything.
The central conflict here is just so stark, and we really need to define it right up front. It's this tension between what Alara calls true wealth and display wealth.
Right.
True wealth for her is defined by personal values, by immense effort, by character, and that internal peace that comes from actually creating something.
Whereas display wealth it's all external. It's the luxury cars, the massive watches on your wrist, the jewels, the fancy restaurants. And this isn't just some rich people problem. This is a philosophical battle playing out in high definition. It's the perfect scenario for you, the learner, to get this rapid insight into the psychology of status.
Exactly. This story gives us a real-time framework for a critical analysis of social power dynamics. It really challenges us to look beyond the surface. I mean, how quickly do we, or the people we deal with, judge someone based on these purely external signals? Alara set a trap, no question. But in doing so, she created this controlled environment to study the very mechanisms of human condescension.
Let's start with the central secret, because it is just jaw-dropping. The secret that Alara kept for 20 years, even from her own son Marcus, who is now 35 years old.
20 years.
The unspoken, astonishing truth is her financial reality. She earns a base salary of $40,000 a month. Let's just contextualize that figure for you. There's $480,000 a year. That's not including bonuses, not including stock options. This puts her squarely in the top 1% of income earners on the planet.
And her job isn't just a title.
No. She's a regional director of operations for a major multinational corporation. So her work involves strategic planning, political navigation across borders. I mean, she's managing logistics for multi-million-dollar supply chains across 5 different countries. She oversees the careers of thousands of employees. This is a brutally demanding job.
It requires political skill, huge long-term vision, and just ruthless efficiency.
She is operating at the absolute pinnacle of corporate power. And yet, her personal life is the complete antithesis of that power.
Right. She's maintained this incredibly consistent, modest lifestyle for 2 decades, and the specifics, they really tell the story.
They do. The same small, modest apartment, the same worn leather handbag she's had for years. She buys her clothes exclusively from discount chain stores.
Constantly cooking at home, systematically investing and saving absolutely everything else.
She described it herself as becoming, quote, rich in silence. And this is the point that really requires the deepest dive. What's the rationale behind this radical simplicity? The 20 years of deliberate secrecy?
Well, for Alara, money was never a trophy. It was never a means of, external validation. She fundamentally rejects this whole idea that wealth has to shout its own existence.
Her core motivation, and she's very clear about this, was the character of her son.
Yeah.
She was terrified that if Marcus knew the extent of her wealth, he would become soft.
Entitled.
Entitled, exactly. That he'd be defined by being an heir rather than being a person who actually achieved things.
She wanted him to value effort, to value struggle and independent achievement, so she intentionally prevented him from having an economic safety net that he didn't earn himself.
I mean, can you just think about the psychological commitment that required? To maintain this constant humble facade for 2 decades while carrying that immense corporate responsibility.
It's unbelievable.
She believed that forcing him to fight, to build his life from the ground up, was really the only way she could protect his character.
But this brings us to a really critical challenge that, our deep dive audience expects us to address. Was this strategy, was it ethical?
That's the question.
Was keeping Marcus in the dark for 20 years, watching him struggle maybe more than he needed to, was that love, or was it a form of control?
That is a crucial question, and it speaks to the moral ambiguity in this whole story. On one hand, her intention was pure, right? To instill self-reliance, but on the other, she robbed him of the chance to share her burden or even understand the pressure she was under.
And as a 35-year-old man, Marcus has clearly internalized this idea that his mother was simple and didn't have much.
And we see the direct consequence of that choice when the dinner invitation arrives. Marcus calls her, not with excitement, but sounding, as she puts it, nervous, like when he was a kid and had done something wrong.
The nervousness comes from what he reveals next. He'd already described his mother to Simone's parents as someone who, quote, works in an office, lives alone, that she is simple, and that she doesn't have much.
He framed her humble existence as a problem, something he needed to manage for his new high-status family.
That word simple, that's the trigger for Alara. She recognized it not as a description of her lifestyle, but as an apology for her entire existence.
He was apologizing for his own mother, to people he desperately wanted to impress.
And the shame he carried, that became the catalyst for her whole plan.
And this is where Alara's core philosophy just kicks right in. True power doesn't shout. True power observes. She'd been observing his anxiety. She'd been observing the corporate world for decades. And she immediately suspected that Simone's family measured human beings purely by their bank account status.
So she decides to engage in a social experiment, the ultimate test.
She decided to give them exactly what they expected to see. Broke, naive, and a little desperate. The goal wasn't just to see their true colors, but to experience firsthand the dehumanizing effects of being judged as worthless.
The preparation for this role was meticulous. It wasn't just a random choice of clothes, it was tactical.
Tactical costuming, absolutely. It was designed to maximize the contrast. She chose this shapeless, wrinkled, light gray thrift store dress, old, worn-out shoes, absolutely no jewelry.
A faded canvas tote bag, a messy ponytail.
She wanted to look, in her words, broken by life, forgettable, perfect. She was aiming for deliberate invisibility.
Yeah.
The kind of woman that high-status people just look right through.
That's the difference, isn't it? A high-power executive versus a truly controlling one. Alara could strip away her status and still have her internal power totally intact.
And the venue selection just completed the setup. A high-end restaurant in the city's most exclusive district. A place where the menu, it omits the prices. Where, as Alara observed, each table setting costs more than the average person's monthly salary. This extravagance was essential. When the judgment came, it had to be swift, it had to be visible, and utterly undeniable. The stage was set for a study in social cruelty.
But before we even get to the dinner, we should probably revisit the depth of her 20-year climb, because that's the foundation of her moral authority in this story.
Absolutely vital context.
We know the destination regional director, but the journey. She started as a minimum wage secretary, pregnant, abandoned by the father, and disowned by her own family at 23.
The sacrifice was just relentless. I mean, we're talking about working 12-hour days, going back to work 2 weeks after Marcus was born, relying on a neighbor for childcare.
Her education wasn't a college degree her parents paid for. It was studying at night, learning English at the public library, mastering accounting and finance through sheer will.
This wasn't just working hard. This was maximizing every available minute for 2 decades. Imagine the emotional toll. Missing school events, constantly juggling, having almost no social life, and carrying the fear of poverty every single day. Even as she was climbing the corporate ladder, right? The promotions were earned through pure hyper-competence and desperation. Secretary to assistant, coordinator to manager, manager to director. It took 20 years of non-stop self-investment to get to that $40,000 monthly income.
Her true wealth wasn't the money, it was the discipline and character forged in that fire. She bought her wealth not with capital, but with time, energy, and sacrifice.
And that context is absolutely vital. When Veronica and Franklin later try to judge her, they're judging a woman who created nearly $10 million in gross income from absolute zero. No family money, no connections, no safety net.
They only see the wrinkled dress.
But Alara sees the 20-year battle scars that earned her the right to wear whatever she damn well chooses.
So, the moment she arrives, the contrast is immediate. It's stark. Marcus is in his nervous dark suit. Simone's perfectly curated in cream and gold. And then you have the in-laws, Veronica and Franklin, seated like absolute royalty.
Veronica in sequined emerald green, calculated beauty, heavy jewels. Franklin, immaculate suit, enormous status symbol watch.
The judgment was immediate and purely visual.
Oh, completely. Veronica's eyes didn't meet Alara's. They just scanned the thrift store dress, the old shoes, the cheap canvas tote. It was a cold, disdainful visual audit.
The handshake was weak, quick, a gesture designed to minimize contact. And then they strategically placed her at the end of the table,
making her visually and literally a second-class guest.
And the cruelty began almost immediately, starting with these subtle, patronizing tactics designed to just confirm her low status. I think we need to analyze the psychology here, not just call it a menu trap.
Agreed. Alara played the part flawlessly. She pretends she doesn't understand the elegant French menu. And Veronica just seizes this opportunity for maximum condescension.
She sighs dramatically, a performance for the whole table, and orders for Alara.
And her instruction to the waiter was the first act of humiliation. Something simple. Something that doesn't cost too much. We don't want to overdo it.
That one line, it just reveals everything. It frames Alara as a financial liability, a budgetary footnote that has to be managed and contained. She wasn't an honored guest, she was a cost center.
This is the first collision of that display wealth philosophy against Alara's true wealth. They believe power is controlling the spending of other people.
This was followed by the sustained status flex.
Right. Veronica's conversation became this steady, aggressive stream of financial boasting, designed to just create an insurmountable gulf between their worlds.
She casually mentions the $1,000 a night hotel they're staying in, the luxury rental car, spending just a few thousand while shopping. These are not updates. They are strategic reminders of Alara's irrelevance.
They were detailing their properties in 3 countries, Franklin's major businesses. Everything they said was calibrated to make Alara feel small. And when Veronica finally turns her attention to Alara, the interrogation begins.
It was cloaked in this cloying sweetness, but it was venomous underneath.
And Alara gave them the answer they wanted.
Eh.
She does paperwork, filing, simple things. Veronica's response was the classic passive-aggressive dismissal. Administrative work, that's fine, it's honest. All jobs are dignified, right?
That rhetorical question just confirms their hierarchy. Some jobs are merely dignified, while theirs are respectable and powerful.
When the food arrived, the status display continued, using the food itself as a financial weapon. Veronica points out her $80 steak, emphasizing that quality is worth paying for. One can't just eat anything, right?
This is a perfect moment to get into the philosophy of it. The $80 steak, described as artistic, tiny, expensive, it's the physical manifestation of display wealth.
High status, low utility.
Exactly. Alara, by contrast, focuses on utility and investment. The steak costs more than her daily food budget, but provides no higher spiritual value. They are paying a premium for social status, not for quality sustenance.
Right. I remember being in a restaurant like that, where the waiter spent 5 minutes describing the provenance of a single carrot. And you're sitting there thinking, is this truly better? Or am I just being charged an admission fee into your exclusive club?
And Veronica was making Alara pay that admission fee even though she wasn't paying the bill.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the cruelty escalated from there into what she calls the financial blows, delivered under the guise of pity. Veronica feigns concern about Alara living alone at your age without much support.
And when Alara minimizes her struggle, Veronica delivers the ultimate insult, sighing dramatically and stating one wishes to give our children more, to give them a better life, but oh well, everyone gives what they can.
Let's pause on that statement. This wasn't just a comment on her income. It was an intentional, disguised character assassination. Veronica was telling Alara she was a failed mother, someone who hadn't provided Marcus with the economic foundation he deserved.
And the source notes that Marcus was actively clenching his fists and Simone was just staring at her plate. They fully recognized the malice behind that veneer of charity.
They knew the game was being played, but they were paralyzed by the sheer financial power and emotional leverage of the in-laws.
To reinforce the comparison, Veronica and Franklin then proudly quantified their investment in the couple. $40,000 for the house down payment and $15,000 for the honeymoon, a total of $55,000.
And they looked to Alara, asking if she helped at all. And Alara, still playing the timid role, gave the only answer she could.
Not much. I gave them what I could. Small gift.
Veronica Sacker in response, how sweet, every detail counts right, was the final sharp knife twist, reducing Alara's 2 decades of sacrifice to a trivial little detail. And this financial flexing was the deliberate buildup to the climax of the setup, the buyout offer. Veronica shifted to serious family talk, making it clear that Alara's perceived low status was an unnecessary burden on Marcus and Simone. She argued that Marcus would naturally worry about his poor mother, which would affect his marriage.
This is a crucial strategic moment we need to analyze. We should frame the $700 offer not just as an insult, but as a negotiation tactic.
Oh, absolutely. They suggested a modest monthly allowance, $500 to $700, to help her live more comfortably.
This is financial control masquerading as charity. In a negotiation, controllers often pair a small, seemingly generous offer, $700, with an enormous life-altering condition.
And the condition here was the real cost. Alara must respect Marcus and Simone's space, not to seek them out so much. They were literally attempting to purchase her disappearance from her son's life for $700 a month.
If you look at this as a corporate transaction, and Alara is a master of corporate transactions, the valuation they put on her entire role as Marcus's mother was roughly $8,400 a year.
Which is less than 2% of her actual annual income.
The insult is just so profound because it attempts to quantify her relational value based on their perceived notion of her financial standing.
And Marcus, to his credit, finally tried to interrupt, but Veronica just cut him off, maintaining control. Alara, however, was quietly processing. Her internal state is described as rage, cold controlled like a river under ice.
Why didn't she explode immediately?
Because she needed to absorb the full extent of their calculation. She had to ensure she had absolute, undeniable evidence of their cruelty before she deployed her counter-strategy. The test had been passed by the in-laws. They had proven their absolute lack of empathy.
I wonder, though, sitting there, having witnessed Marcus's shame and all this emotional blackmail, was Alara truly just testing them, or was she also maybe subconsciously enjoying the setup of this perfect public execution?
That is an absolutely fair, critical question.
Is that a fair assessment of true power? Setting a trap for your adversaries.
I think the pursuit of true power often involves a degree of cold calculation. Her actions moved beyond simple defense into active strategic humiliation. We have to assume that part of her satisfaction came from knowing the level of force she was about to unleash.
She spent 20 years observing.
And now she was moving from observer to actor. And the script she wrote was designed not just for victory, but for absolute domination. Her final act would be less about teaching them a lesson and more about demonstrating the consequence of misjudging her.
The moment of transition is just breathtaking. Alara accepts the offer, calling it very generous, but the instant she speaks, that timid, soft, simple voice disappears.
Gone. It's replaced by a voice described as firm, clear, and cold. The performance is over. She is no longer the supplicant mother. She is the regional director of operations.
She immediately uses their own metrics against them. She enters the negotiation. She dissects the financial figures they presented.
$700 a month for me to disappear from my son's life. She brings up their investment of $55,000 in the house and honeymoon.
And this is where the conversation pivots from money to motive. She uses those figures to land the core accusation. She asks Veronica directly what that $55,000 bought them.
Did it buy you respect, or did it just buy obedience?
She points out that they spent the entire evening calculating her worth by her wallet, but never once asked a single question about her happiness, her health, or her true well-being. They valued her purely as a variable in Marcus's financial equation.
And this leads to the fundamental clash of values, the dignity challenge. Alara shifts the focus from their inherited wealth to the concept of earned success. She challenges Veronica directly.
Have you ever struggled alone? Have you ever built something with your own 2 hands without your family's money?
This is such a critical distinction. Alara highlights the difference between those who manage money overseeing businesses built by others, managing investments, and those who create wealth from scratch. It requires a completely different skill set.
Risk-taking, suffering, relentless self-reliance.
And Veronica, the manager of major businesses, stammered. She wouldn't answer the question, proving the hollowness of her own self-made claims.
It exposed the soft underbelly of their arrogance. They confuse inheritance and capital management with genuine power creation. Alara's power stems from her capacity to create value, irrespective of her current holdings.
Their power is based on the retention of existing assets.
And then comes the full, stunning reveal of her backstory, delivered to a now silent table. She doesn't just mention the struggle, she details it.
23 years old, minimum wage secretary, pregnant, alone, family abandonment. She recounts the 20-year climb with brutal precision, the 12-hour days, the quick return to work, studying at the public library, mastering corporate finance while juggling motherhood. She makes it clear every promotion was earned. No safety net, no mentorship, just sheer force of will.
And then the financial bomb drops. She gives them the number with cold corporate clarity.
I earn now $40,000 a month for almost 20 years. That's almost $10 million in gross income.
The reaction just captures the sheer magnitude of the shock. Marcus drops his fork. Simone is frozen. Franklin, the man of business, is utterly lost.
Alara reinforces the true scale of her corporate power. She manages budgets that eclipse their estimated net worth. She makes high-stakes decisions affecting thousands of employees daily. The woman they tried to pay off for $700 is, objectively, exponentially wealthier and more powerful in the corporate world than they are.
Simone finally manages to whisper the question everyone is thinking. Why? Why the small apartment? The simple clothes? The cheap car?
And Alara's answer is the defining statement of this entire deep dive. It's the core of her true wealth philosophy.
Because I don't need to impress anyone, because true wealth isn't shown off.
She explains that her discipline has allowed her to build and multiply her wealth, not squander it on flashy jewelry or showing off in expensive restaurants.
And then she delivers the precise rationale for the test. I came dressed like this tonight. I wanted to see how you would treat me if you thought I had nothing. I wanted to see your true colors, and boy, did I see them.
Her ultimate statement is a condemnation of their values, delivered with the authority of someone who earned her position. Money does not buy class. It does not buy real education. It does not buy empathy.
She exposes their internal emptiness, noting their obsession with external symbols prevents them from ever achieving real peace or connection.
Veronica tries one last, frantic attempt to regain control, accusing Alara of lying, of deception.
And Alara's response is ice cold. You didn't make you look like fools. You took care of that all on your own. I just gave you the opportunity to show who you are.
This is where we need to analyze the strategic genius of the moment. Alara rejects the idea of debating her strategy. Instead, she pivots to a moral challenge. She offers the $1 million counteroffer.
I will give you $1 million right now if you can prove to me that you ever treated someone kindly who didn't have money.
It's an impossible test for them to pass. Their entire evening was dedicated to doing the exact opposite. By demanding they prove kindness, she highlights the moral deficit that their massive bank accounts could never fill. They were paralyzed. They had no answer.
And then comes the financial execution. She reaches into that old canvas tote, pulls out the black platinum corporate card, a card that symbolizes high-level auditing, massive institutional credibility, unlimited corporate leverage, and drops it on the table to pay for the $800 dinner.
She tells Veronica to consider it a gift from a broke and naive mother. The power dynamic is completely inverted.
But the universe wasn't finished delivering vindication. Franklin attempts this desperate move to save face, reaching for his own shiny golden credit cards to pay the bill. He needs to assert his financial dominance one last time.
And this leads to the ultimate humiliation playback. The waiter returns, and Franklin's shiny golden card is declined. He insists, arguing it must be a security block due to travel. He hands over a second card.
That card, too, is declined?
And let's pause here because this detail is critically important for you, the learner. Why would a man who boasts of properties in 3 countries have his card declined?
It speaks to the difference between audited corporate liquidity, Alara's world, and personal credit, which can be subject to temporary security blocks, over-limit issues, or maybe just managing too much debt. His wealth was fragile, it was built on display, not necessarily liquid reserves.
Whereas Alara's cards represent an entirely different scale of financial health and stability, one backed by a massive institution and decades of audited performance. Franklin storms out to call his bank, leaving Veronica utterly devastated. Her power, her perceived status, was just declined by a bank security system.
And in that moment of shattered pride, Alara produces the ultimate symbol of true, silent power. She pulls out her simple, old leather wallet and retrieves her secondary card. the transparent heavy metal Centurion card.
And we really need to explain the gravity of the Centurion card. It is not something you apply for. It's an invitation-only product from American Express. To even get the invitation, you typically need to demonstrate years of incredibly high spending, upwards of $250,000 annually.
It has a high annual fee, but the status it confers is absolute. The physical weight and the unique transparency, they symbolize a level of wealth that transcends everyday platinum or gold. It's the ultimate quiet flex.
And the source material is fantastic here. The waiter handles the Centurion card as if it were something sacred. The payment is instantaneous. The entire room, including the staff, now understands who the real power at the table is.
With her financial and moral power confirmed, Alara delivers the final, crushing exit line, referencing Veronica's earlier boast of speaking 4 languages.
In which of those 4 languages did you learn to be kind? Because clearly it wasn't in any of them.
A brutal, absolute victory. She walked out having not just paid the bill, but having exposed the core fragility of their self-worth. They realized the woman they treated like human debris had more money, more class, and more power than they did, all because they failed the simplest test of human decency.
The immediate fallout, the drive home with Marcus, is so vital because it addresses the emotional consequences of Alara's 20 years of secrecy. Marcus is just overwhelmed. He says he is proud, incredibly proud, but he also feels foolish blind for never having understood his mother's true life.
And Alara immediately assures him that he's not foolish. This is her chance to explain the true rationale for the deception. She affirms she did it so he would be independent, so he would fight for himself, so he would value what he created, not what he inherited.
She protected his character by forcing him into self-reliance. She made that difficult trade-off between protecting his financial future and ensuring his moral fortitude.
Marcus brings up the issue of forgiveness regarding Veronica and Franklin. Alara's answer is so mature, it reflects her corporate wisdom.
Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, nor does it mean allowing it to happen again. She establishes a critical boundary. Until she sees real, genuine change, she will remain polite, distant, and extremely cautious.
And that's a lesson for the learner, isn't it? Boundaries are not punitive, they are self-preservative.
To help ground this intense corporate drama, the source introduces these profound external perspectives, starting with the cab driver on the ride home. This older man, described as having working hands, he notices Alara's look, the look of someone who just said something they've been keeping inside for years.
And the driver offers this pure, distilled wisdom, distinguishing between honesty and truth. The truth, he argues, can be situational. It depends on who tells it. But honesty is saying things as you feel them, without masks, without lies.
And honesty, he concludes, always brings peace, even if the confrontation itself is painful or awkward.
Alara confirmed this feeling. She wasn't euphoric about the victory. She was simply at peace because she had finally shed the mask she'd worn for 20 years.
And the driver also offers the ultimate outside validation of her philosophy. Truly rich people don't need to prove it. This simple statement from a working man confirms the inherent value of quiet power versus the noisy insecurity of display wealth.
The next day, Alara is seeking peace in a park, and she encounters an older woman feeding pigeons. This provides the profound pigeon metaphor. The woman points out that humans are the only animals that invent false hierarchies.
Think about that. Pigeons, regardless of their size or color or perceived status among the flock, they all eat from the same bread and share the same space without judgment.
The woman says we should learn from them how to transcend these artificial social structures built on wealth and appearance. It strips away the complexity of human society and reduces it to the basic equal need for sustenance and dignity.
The woman also provides a critical observation that justifies Alara's actions. She states that the most miserable people she ever met were those who had the most because it was never enough.
Right. They were constantly competing, comparing, trying to fill an internal void with material possessions. This perfectly describes Veronica and Franklin, who, despite their enormous wealth, were willing to sacrifice human connection for just a slight increase in control.
And this philosophical grounding sets the stage for the most hopeful ripple effect: Simone's transformation. 3 days later, Simone visits Alara. And crucially, she arrives stripped of her status symbols.
Dressed in jeans and a plain top, no jewelry, her hair is simple, she looks real different.
And Simone comes not just to apologize, but to provide context rooted in intergenerational trauma. And this is a key analytical point we have to expand on. Simone reveals that her parents grew up dirt poor overseas, suffering from hunger, lack of medicine. For them, money was not a tool. It was their sole definition of security, survival, and success.
We see this phenomenon so frequently. The children of those who suffered intense deprivation often mistake material security for emotional security. Their wealth isn't used for enjoyment, it's used as a defense mechanism and a means to control their environment, to make sure the shame and fear of the past are never repeated.
Their cruelty came from a place of deep, unhealed fear.
However, Simone emphasizes that trauma doesn't excuse cruelty. Her breakthrough realization was profoundly simple. Love is not control, and family is not blind obedience.
She realized she had spent her life placating her parents' fear, and in doing so, she was internalizing their toxic value system.
She tells Alara that her actions at the dinner, the brutal honesty and the public reveal, saved her from becoming my mother, from perpetuating that toxic cycle of measuring value only by bank accounts.
And that is the ultimate victory for Alara. It transcends the immediate conflict and achieves genuine intergenerational change.
This realization spurred action for Marcus and Simone. They made a conscious choice to set clear boundaries with their parents. They established explicit rules, absolutely no comments about money, no comparisons, and zero emotional blackmail.
They chose emotional freedom over financial aid. They understood that the in-laws were using money as a lever of control, and by asserting their independence, Marcus and Simone stripped away that power.
They realized that their parents really believe their value is in their wallet, and the only way to escape that belief system was to decouple their own value from their parents' approval.
And this is the final synthesis of true wealth. Alara, reflecting in her simple apartment, confirms that real wealth is internal. Peace, health, love, a passionate career, genuine relationships. She had liberated herself from the need to hide who I was, and in doing so, achieved a form of internal peace that the Centurion card, in and of itself, could never guarantee.
Her dignity wasn't bought. It was earned through 20 years of struggle and reinforced by the courage to live authentically. The Centurion card was merely the microphone she used to amplify her message. The true power was the internal compass that allowed her to value effort over appearance.
Connecting this back to you, the learner, the core lesson here is that authenticity is the highest form of power. You don't need a transparent heavy metal credit card to have dignity, but you must have a solid internal compass that anchors your self-worth and your values, not in external judgment.
So, to summarize the key strategic and philosophical takeaways Alara's narrative offers us.
First, you have to recognize the difference between power and control. Alara demonstrated the immense power to create wealth and transform her life. Veronica and Franklin sought only control by managing existing money and trying to coerce and bribe those they deemed inferior.
Second, the immense value of a simple life built on effort. Alara's choice to live modestly prevented the corruption and entitlement often associated with extreme wealth, ensuring her character remained independent and resilient.
Third, the critical role of boundaries in protecting your life from toxic expectations. Marcus and Simone's decision to risk substantial financial security for emotional freedom was a necessary act to break that cycle of intergenerational control and trauma.
And fourth, the sharp distinction driven home by the cab driver. Money does not buy class or empathy, but the honesty that Alara deployed, even in a confrontation, bought her lasting internal peace and liberated her relationships.
At the end of the day, Alara's strategic decision successfully exposed the profound fragility of wealth built only on appearance and the hollowness of social standing that relies entirely on the systematic humiliation of others.
And this leaves us with the provocative final thought, something to sit with long after this deep dive is over. Alara's test challenged Veronica and Franklin to see past the facade. If you stripped away everything you own, your title, your car, your zip code, every single external marker of success, what fundamental characteristic would remain that you believe dictates your true value to the world, and would you be profoundly proud of it?
Is your self-worth tied to what you possess, or who you are when you possess nothing? That is the real deep dive we must all take.
Food for thought. Thank you for joining us for this intense analysis of power, perception, and an unforgettable dinner confrontation.
We'll see you next time for the next deep dive.